We're back on Inside USA, where this week we've been looking at issues facing veterans here in America. In a moment, we'll hear from a Vietnam vet. But first, Richard Gisbert puts the U.S. media under the election post microscope.
American banks are in big trouble, the markets are in a state of turmoil, and there are still bombs going off in Baghdad. For the American media covering the election campaign, though, the talk is of Sarah Palin and politically engineered media narratives. This week on the election post, how the U.S. media hype meaningless campaign non-issues over the ballooning crises facing the United States. How angry are the U.S. media over the tactics of the John McCain campaign?
No, I had never heard of anything like this.
Even the normally pro-Republican Fox News Channel is calling McCain out for lying.
I want to hold you accountable for what McCain is doing and get you to weigh in on this. Has your candidate gone too far? Has he stretched the truth with the voters?
John McCain stands accused of running a misleading ad suggesting Barack Obama advocates sex education for 5-year-olds.
Learning about sex before learning to read? Barack Obama. Wrong on education. Wrong for your family.
And another questionable ad accusing Obama of insulting McCain's vice presidential nominee Sarah Palin when he said that trying to freshen up old Republican policies with a new face was like putting lipstick on a pig. Even though most in the media thought McCain was being unfair, that Obama meant no such thing, the media followed McCain's agenda by eating up airtime discussing the lipstick non-issue.
Lipstick madness. Top story tonight, pigs and lipstick.
Lipstick on a pig.
That lipstick comment.
The net sum of which was to spend 2 days talking about something which really didn't matter. And the media played into it. It's a good story. It's a compelling story which took everyone's attention off the bigger story.
The issue of the day today, all day, lipstick on a pig.
Lipstick smears pigs.
This is the same old storyline that's been coming out of the Republicans in the United States for decades. I mean, they have been focusing on the personality over substance, on creating artificial scandals, which start with the Drudge Report, a very, very popular online blog that then moves to radio, the right-wing radio hosts like Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham.
Barack Obama has issues with women voters.
Then it moves to Fox News TV, and then from there it moves over to the major network TV.
You're riding the lipstick thing today.
So they have a very well-constructed media machine that can take a murmur and turn it into a roar.
So it was almost like the McCain campaign playing sort of dangle the bait. Are you going to pick up this silly story and then we can direct the news cycle for 2 days about it, even though you know that there's no merit to it?
It was a remark that I took offense at.
It is a day-by-day battle. There's no question that we all move on from one news cycle to the next. That's what they're fighting. The national polls now would indicate that the race is virtually tied. So that makes for a very vulnerable situation in which every day's advantage is important.
The American media have played an integral role in the recent revival of the McCain campaign. John McCain did not pick Sarah Palin to be his running mate because of her experience or knowledge of a particular issue. He picked her for her story in order to change the media narrative of this campaign.
The McCain campaign is trying with Sarah Palin to craft this narrative. You know, she's a hockey mom, she's a real person, she's, you know, feisty, etc. And then add to that narrative that any kind of contradiction or any kind of investigation into her actual qualifications, positive or negative, is sexist.
Can she answer tough questions about, you know, domestic policy, foreign policy?
But I mean, like from who? From you?
And so they create the profile and then they try to fill it out before the rest of the media can, which is one of the reasons why they restrict the interviews, because the less that Sarah Palin says unscripted and candidly, the more the scripted Sarah Palin is in the news.
For the ratings-driven U.S. media, sometimes the facts aren't as compelling as the fiction.
The media loves stuff like this, and we are driving the pig train.
Checking the facts, the distortions that are thrown out by the campaigns is a laborious process. And by the time the truth is out, the lies have gotten a full airing, and those who tell them tend to profit in the polls.
The facts don't seem to matter anymore, that even when the candidates come out, especially Palin and McCain, come out with obvious lies that have been proven to be untrue, they do get a bump, they get the press coverage, because what's happened is there is a catastrophic failure in the U.S. media to ask the tough questions, seek out the facts, and tease apart the rhetoric from reality.
2 days from now, I want to ask you, what will we talk about 2 days from now?
Whatever the McCain campaign wants us to talk about.
And we'll be keeping an eye on the U.S. media's coverage of the presidential campaign as voting day approaches here at the Election Post.
We're back in Washington at the Vietnam War Memorial. Earlier in the show, we looked at some of the issues facing veterans of America's occupation of Iraq. Some of those very same issues confront the 8 million Vietnam veterans in this country. Here's one of those vets with his story and his take on the election.
My name is Richard Klass, K-L-A-S-S. I'm 67 years old. I was in Vietnam from March 1967 to March 1968. I flew over 220 combat missions in little light airplanes as a forward air controller for the Air Force. Christmas Day, 1967, and we were zipping around at about 600 feet in a very dangerous place and got hit by a bullet and got wounded, but fortunately was able to get the airplane back. Vets are homeless every night, sleeping on the street. That is a travesty. Many of those vets are veterans of this war, and most of that is a result of drug abuse or PTSD or other conditions that they got because of their service in the war. And with multiple tours, remember in Vietnam, unless you volunteered, you only served 1 year. We've got people going back for 3 and 4 and 5 tours. So if you've had 5 tours over there and don't have PTSD, you're a very strong and lucky person. It's going to get much worse. They have constantly underfunded the VA. For the first 5 years, they cut claims processors, they cut staff, they eliminated veterans who were otherwise eligible from treatment. And so you have this huge backlog. They did not plan for the casualties of this war, physical as well as mental. So we have a tsunami coming, and because of lack of preparation and because of getting behind the power curve, we're going to have a very difficult time dealing it. And unless you deal with it up front and soon, problems just get much worse downstream.
That's all the time we have for this week's edition of Inside USA. Until next time, so long.